Today, we start a whole new unit. I think this is fantastic, and we're just going to kind of relax into it and learn some stuff. I think it'll be fun. I actually think it'll be fun. I'm not just trying to sell you on that, but so here we go. So, if you will kindly go to my website, argenheimer.com, go to AP Psychology, then down to Clinical Psychology, I will have my notes here for you. You can actually follow along with the teacher copy, which I have here, little cheat sheet. But I'm going to be using the non-filled out version to talk about. So today we're going to talk kind of the intro to abnormal psychology as well as schizophrenia, which is fantastic. We'll see. I don't know quite how long this video is going to be, but there's a lot to do on schizophrenia. We're going to go through, I'm going to go much faster through abnormal disorders, or they all call it clinical. They used to call it abnormal, which is why it's called abnormal on the sheet. It's now called clinical as of this year, but I'm going to go a little faster than I would have otherwise. So we're going to do all of intro and schizophrenia in a day, and then we'll probably do like a whole category of disorders in each day. And that'll give us enough time, once we're done with this, to go back over like a unit per day as we review for the AP test. We'll be in good shape for that, and we're going to learn some stuff along the way. It'll be fun. So just relax into it. Get some coffee or something, and we'll learn some stuff. So starting out, ooh, I wish I had, that's a shame. I think my DSM is still at school. Oh well, I'll find pictures of it. Starting out, what is abnormal, which is an important question to ask, and ordinarily I'd be sitting at the chalkboard asking that question, and you'd have answers. The spoiler for that is there's really no good description of what abnormal, because you could, here's a wrong answer, by the way. And basically all that you can give is wrong answers. So there are no real right answers. Even the right answer is not a right answer. So what is abnormal? You could say abnormal is like rare, which would work because a lot of psychological disorders are rare, but some are pretty common. And what other things that are rare, like being a genius, is rare, but not a disorder. Being able to roll your tongue. There's 3 ways you can do with the roll tongue. You can not roll your tongue. You can roll your tongue once, which, like, I feel like a little bit more than half of people can do that. And there's the other thing that I can't do. It's the little clover thing, which usually when I do this, like 2 people can do that in a class. But rare doesn't quite work. And then you could say if it's bad for you, like if it's harmful to the person, which actually usually does work, and that's kind of one of the actual definitions. It has to be harmful enough that they go in. In other words, if you are depressed but you never go to a therapist to officially get the label of major depressive disorder, then you're not depressed, at least not clinically, because you never got it. I mean, you would be depressed, but according to the American way we do things, you wouldn't have the label of depression, obviously, because you never got it. But here's the end of that story is it's considered abnormal if it's in the DSM. We're currently on revision 5, and we use Roman numerals, so the DSM 5. If you go back, the little picture, that's my DSM, that picture there. But let's look at DSM 5, Google Images. So here's the DSM. It's an expensive book that you can get on Amazon or any place that sells books. And it has all of, man, I wish I had that book with me. That's a shame. It has all of the disorders, and it basically gives a list of symptoms. And typically it works like you, let me see if I can find an example. For, let's see, depression, DSM 5. Perfect. I'm going to just assume that this is an updated image here. So I'm just going to read this through. By the way, this is how it works for most disorders, is they give you a list of total symptoms, and you have to have X amount of the symptoms, and then congratulations, you have the disorder. So it works especially, you can see some problems with, it's a really good system in some ways because it's very objective, but it's a really bad system in some ways because, well, let me read through this and you can make your own assessment. But I'm going to read through these 9 symptoms, So check in your mind if you can say yes or no to this. If you can say yes to at least 5 of them, and you said that to a therapist, a licensed therapist, you would have major depressive disorder. So here we go. Number 1, major depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day, as indicated by either subjective report, for example, feeling sad, empty, or hopeless, or observation made by others, for example, appears tearful. 1. 2, markedly diminished interest in pleasure or in all or almost all activities nearly every day. So that's you just don't care about stuff. 3, significant weight loss when not dieting, or weight gain or decrease or increase in appetite nearly every day. In other words, if your weight goes up or down, or if your appetite goes up or down. Basically, if your weight or appetite are not normal, that would be number 3. 4, and another bidirectional symptom is insomnia or hypersomnia nearly every day, where you can't sleep or you sleep too much. Number 5, psychomotor agitation or retardation nearly every day. Another polarized symptom there. That means you move too much or don't move at all. 6, fatigue or loss of energy nearly every day. 7, feelings of worthlessness or excessive and inappropriate guilt. You feel guilty because of bad things you've done or even things you haven't done. You just feel guilty. 8, diminished ability to think or concentrate or indecisiveness. And 9, recurrent thoughts of death with or without a plan. So if you have at least 5 of those, then if you go to a therapist, and by the way, a therapist would basically walk you through this exact same list and check those off. And then if you check 5 or more, then you officially have the disorder. Same thing works for every disorder. There's hundreds of disorders in this book. And that's how it works. So there's good and bad things about that. The good is, and it also has to cause enough distress to you or your family members that you actually go in, would be the other thing that abnormal is. The benefits of, these are just kind of my thoughts, and if I was in class, I'd have you all give the benefits and problems, but I'm not, so I'll give them myself, I guess. The benefits of this is it's kind of objective, because every therapist agrees that you have to have 5 symptoms, not 4 or 6, 5, to get depression. Another benefit is you can kind of pass off your clients to different therapists. So if you go to therapist A and you say this person has schizophrenia and major depressive disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder, everyone knows what that means because it's defined in the Purple Book, the DSM. So it is easy. I'm not going to write this down. And it's easy to pass off from therapist to therapist, which I guess is a good thing. The problem is it stigmatizes disorders, which I guess is kind of unavoidable, but you might try and avoid getting a title of schizophrenia because then there's things you can't do with that title. People might be scared to interact with you. There's a lot of, it has this weight attached to it. And then other problems would be that it is objective in one hand that you have to have 5, but it's also subjective. Especially not so much with the depression, but especially things like obsessive compulsive disorder. If I read you the obsessive compulsive disorder one, in fact, let me bring that up. Obsessive disorder, DSM-5. Let's see if we can find that. There's a lot of things that virtually, probably half of you could say yes to enough of these to get. Oh, come on, clarify yourself. There we go. Perfect. Okay. You have to have A, B, C, and D. That is not how I remember that. I remember it being a list of things. Anyway, but especially in depression even, you can kind of say yes or no to some of them depending on your mood. Also, it'd be easy to lie. If you have to go to court-ordered therapy, you are maybe going to not tell the truth, but that's that. The axes. So I used to work for a mental health billing company, and I got to see a lot of people in Oklahoma's medical charts. I had to sign some disclaimer saying I wouldn't say things about it. But I just did the programming and tech support for a therapist during that. But in every client, therapists have to fill out these axes for their patients. Axis 1 is the clinical syndrome. And if you go to my teacher copy, that's what I'm kind of reading off of. And that is actually what disorder they have. So that could be, I'll give examples here, like this person has schizophrenia, or maybe they have major depressive disorder, whatever, just the main thing that they have psychologically. Axis 2 is a little confusing, at least to me, which is it is either personality disorder or mental retardation, or IQ score. So if IQ is below a certain point, you'll have to note that. So this person has an IQ of 50, and they have antisocial personality disorder, or colloquially a sociopath. They don't feel bad for doing bad things. Axis 3 is general medical condition. And that would be like a non-psychological condition, like this person has diabetes or cancer and AIDS. This guy's not looking so good right now. Axis 4 would be psychosocial or environmental stressors. I'll just call it environmental stressors. And that would be anything non-medical and non-psychological that may impact their functioning. And it can be something as simple as like lives with grandparents, or homeless, or it could be large, small, let's see what else, or joint custody with divorced parents, anything that has any impact or could have any impact on their mental well-being. Axis 5 is the global assessment of functioning. And that is a score from 0 to 100, and let me look at this up here. It's a rating of just generally how high functioning are they. Global assessment of functioning. Let's see. Here we go. Here's an example of the GAF score. All right, so and kind of a range of what each score means. So here at 100, the person has no problems. 90, person has few problems. 80, slight impairment. 60s is mild symptoms in one area. 50s, moderate symptoms. 40s, serious symptoms. 30s is now you're starting to get kind of in this delusional or maybe psychotic, or you're not able to do much. 20s, oh well, there you go. So presence of hallucinations or delusions. See here you have some moderate to severe schizophrenia. In the teens, danger of harm to self or others, and then in the single digits you have recurrent suicide or homicidal thoughts or actions. So that's not good. Let's see. Going down, we have the categories of disorders. We're going to go through each one of these, but the anxiety disorders, which are anxiety, which also includes obsessive compulsive disorders. Somatoform disorders are the disorders that have physical symptoms, but they're caused by your mind. And they get really weird. We'll talk about them. Dissociative disorders are anything having to do with amnesia. So all the amnesias would be that, as well as multiple personalities, which is called dissociative identity disorder. Mood is, we'll have all the depressions and so on. And then I have the percentages of people that will have any disorder in any given year. So in any given year, more than a quarter of Americans currently have a disorder. But I've heard that 2/3 of Americans over the course of their lifetime will ever have a disorder. So I think it's important to talk about, because of all of you that are listening to this video, 1/3 of you will escape your life having never had a mental disorder, and the other 2/3 will have one. Including myself, by the way. Kind of weird to say it on video, but I have anxiety and mild depression, and I maybe it sounds a little weird to say that, but I think it's important to say that, because 2/3 of people in America will at some point have that. And so I'm on medicine for that. We'll talk more, because we also talk about treatment. I'll talk about how exactly, we kind of already did, how that medicine works, and some of the pros and cons of that sort of thing. But any given time, 1/4 of people have it, and over the course of your lifetime, 2/3. So that's a lot of people.